What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Appreciate y'all taking a second to stop in and check this video out, which is, as you can already tell, about spinnerbaits. Yeah, I was going through some tackle, just had an order come in, and I'm prepping for the new season, and I'm getting my spinnerbaits organized, trying to get everything right, and it just made me think about spinnerbaits in general, and kind of a conversation that I think needs to be had. Is a spinnerbait overrated or underutilized? What do you guys think? So for me, I would say that it's probably one of my biggest tools that I have, that I use throughout the year. I can't tell you how many big fish I've personally caught on a spinnerbait, but I mean, I can only imagine if you count all the giant fish that have ever been weighed in on a spinnerbait. I can't even imagine how many it is. Man, such an excellent fish catching tool. To me, I think is probably underutilized in today's day and age with the advent of, let's see here, one of these bad boys, right? Everybody who knows anything about bass fishing these days knows what a jackhammer or chatterbait, blah, blah, blah. And that, you know, this popping onto the scene however many years ago, Brian Thrift blowing it up, and, you know, all those other folks making this bait popular, has kind of put this bait in the rearview mirror for a lot of people, which to me is great, because I catch a lot of fish still on a spinnerbait. Not to take anything away from a jackhammer or a chatterbait, because I catch a lot of big fish on that too. But I just thought it would be kind of a good short video topic to kind of share with everybody on why you should not only rely on this, because this thing certainly catches giants, but it has its disadvantages, especially around wood. Anyone who throws this around wood, cypress tree knees, knows what I'm talking about. But this thing, on the other hand, you can throw anywhere. Very weedless, catches them, catches big ones. Works 4 seasons. I mean, I was just catching them, here in mid 40 degree water in the snow, early this week on a spinnerbait. So obviously it can catch them in the winter, you can catch them in the summer on it, you can catch them in the spring, especially in the spring, the fall, burning it. I mean, it is a truly 4-season lure, and I think it just doesn't get the love that it used to get. Certainly there's still a lot of cultists like myself hanging around out there, but yeah, man, I think that it just takes the back seat to a lot of things these days, and I think that could play to a lot of our advantage if you just pick it up and throw it. There's a reason that it's been around forever and catches the crap out of them. It's just one of those things. You can do a lot of different things with it. You can, slow roll it, and you can burn it. You can fish it in dirty water and clean water. You can do a lot. All you got to do is kind of tailor your spinnerbait to the conditions you're fishing, right? So I think the other thing that guys do that use spinnerbaits is they only use one spinnerbait. Like, if they're not biting a 3/8 ounce double willow, then you're just not going to catch them, because you don't throw anything but a 3/8 ounce double willow. And I think that's a mistake too, because as with anything, you want to tailor your bait to the conditions you're fishing, right? So for me, like, I kind of, I use them all. I use a 1/4 ounce up to an ounce spinnerbait. This one in my hand here, this is actually a 3/4. This is, I would say, is probably one of my most utilized sizes, especially early in the season. I use a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait a lot. And it could be because of the bodies of water that I fish. Kerr and Gaston and a lot of those other lakes here in Virginia that just kind of bode well for a big spinnerbait. Big blades. Obviously, you got to have a big head to keep it down and keep it from rolling over on itself. And the other thing is I mean, the sky's the limit with the spinnerbait, right? So not only do you have sizes, you've got blades, you've got obviously blade combinations, whether you want to keep it down, and so let me back up. So choosing your spinnerbait, it's kind of, no spinnerbait is a one bait catch-all deal. Certainly, yeah, you could go throw a double willow spinnerbait around in the middle of winter, or in the middle of the year 24/7 and probably catch them on it. But if you want to maximize the amount of fish you catch, you've got to kind of tailor the bait you have to the situation you're fishing, right? So for instance, last week I was throwing a double willow spinnerbait in 40-degree water, and I know a lot of people were probably wondering, like, well, that's the exact opposite of what you should probably do, right? Because if the concept with double willows is more flash, but you typically can't fish them as slow, because you got to reel that spinnerbait in order to keep those blades moving, and inherently that's not kind of what you want to do in the wintertime. But in my situation, the lakes that I'm fishing are pretty clear, actually very clear, got some grass and stuff in them, pretty filtered, so I'm using that willow leaf and moving it pretty fast because my water's clear. So even in clear water, those fish will travel to come get that because they can see it. But with that said, I can't creep it along but so slow because the water is clear. So there's a fine line of working it too fast, but working it too slow, and then getting it too good of a look at it. So, let's take and go to the other end of the spectrum. So you've got, I was fishing Clearwater before, but a lot of the lakes in Virginia right now, and pretty much everywhere, are blown out from all the rain we've had in the east in the last couple weeks here. So you wouldn't pull a double willow out if you were going to Kerr right now. You would pull out something probably like this, a thumper. And so that's kind of the great divide with spinnerbaits, is you've got head size, blade combination. If you went with something like this is a true thumper, a 1 ounce single Colorado. This thing's got a lot of thump, not much flash, tons of thump, like even more thump so than the tandem. This is a number 6 Colorados. This thing right here, if anybody knows anything about thumping spinnerbaits, this thing right here will rip your arm, give you a tennis elbow. But sometimes in dirty water, especially in high 40s, low 50s, you need that thump if you don't have water clarity. So there's never going to be a one-size-fits-all spinnerbait, but I think that's kind of what deters people, whereas you could pretty much just pull out one of these things right here, slap a trailer on it, and you can have any number of trailers, and that's a whole other conversation for spinnerbaits as well, and just run. And I think a lot of people kind of took it as this and they just kind of pushed the spinnerbait to the side, which is okay because it leaves a lot of big fish out there for people like me, and I'm sure a lot of people watching the video that still have a nostalgic love of the old wire. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to get my thoughts on it out there, and kind of maybe you guys tell me in the comment section below, like, what do you think? Is it overrated, or is it underutilized in today's day? I almost feel like it's underutilized. There's definitely still a lot of guys, especially from where I'm at, the spinnerbait still has a lot of favor with a lot of the guys I've competed against on a daily basis. You can pretty much pull up to any boat ramp nowadays and see a spinnerbait. But what I think I want you guys to take from this is don't think that, or don't be afraid to try different spinnerbaits, right? So just because they're not biting the one that you always throw doesn't mean they're not biting a spinnerbait on that day, on that day at the lake. Maybe you need to look at your water clarity, look at if the wind's blowing, look at a lot of different factors, and try to tailor your spinnerbait to get the bites. So as far as spinnerbait brands go, there's a lot of them, from garage builds to big time manufacturers. There's a bazillion people making spinnerbaits. I'm not super brand specific. There's a lot of qualities in spinnerbaits that I like from brand to brand. For instance, this one right here, the Man's old school classic spinnerbait, dude. This thing right here has just got big fish energy. I don't know what it is, but caught a bazillion big ones on this one. And you know, this is the old school. This is a 3/4, and I use it in the tandem. This one as well, the tandem one, 3/4. This thing works at the river. It works at Kerr. It works at everywhere in between. It catches them. So Man's, you know, that old school spinnerbait is great. I know they're kind of redoing it now. Man's isn't making it anymore. I think Hank Parker's doing something different. Santone makes, you know, Santone products are great. Santone makes a great one. How can you not mention it? The Booyah, you know, Jason, you know, Christie's Booyah Covert series is fantastic. Old school hog callers. If you know, you know. This is the OG. This is a 1 ounce. Shout out Kurt for giving me that, for selling me those from his stash. There's tons of brands that I don't even have that are in my go box. This is all my backstock stuff. I use a lot of Stan Sloan Zora, the Bango blades. I use a ton of Pepper's custom baits. That's kind of my double willow, you know, the one that I use the most. Z-Man makes a great spinnerbait. War Eagle makes a great spinnerbait. There's a lot of them out there, and I'm not super brand specific. I kind of get locked in depending on how good of bites I get on certain times with them, like, which is why this Man's is so dear to my heart. Just caught so many big ones on it. But I still experiment around, and have had great success on every brand I've shown you here. I've caught them good on every one. And I don't think that the main thing for me is it built around a good hook? You know, I think the Santone's a must-add hook, which nothing wrong with that. Booyahs, whoever makes their hook, you know, man, if it's built around a good hook and there's some consistency in how you build them. See, like the Man's, the only drawback to the Man's is you definitely had some quality issues with the Man's from time to time. But I do really like that bend up front. You know, I really wish that the R bend is okay, but if it was up to me, this one right here is the one, that twist paper, you know, the paper clip style clip is awesome. But you know, if it's built around a good hook, does it have the right gauge wire? If it's too heavy, it doesn't have enough vibration, it lasts forever, but it doesn't get the bites, right? And to me, that's a useless spinnerbait. I want as thin wires I can get away with and still get bites. You know, like the Bango blade's a real thin wire. You know, something like a 3/1000 wire, depending on how heavy your head is. You know, once you get a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, which is like something that I like to use, and you get, you know, a 3/1000 wire on it, obviously you're only going to get, you know, you wear that thing out just casting it if you're really whipping on it. So there's a fine line between quality components and creating a good spinnerbait that's going to catch them. But just know that a good spinnerbait isn't going to last, because it's designed to get bites, not designed to last. And I think that's something as fishermen, you know, people kind of get a little greedy from time to time. Like, if a spinnerbait costs $7 and you catch 10 fish with it, like, was it worth the $10? Absolutely. To me, you know, I would say every day of the week. If I spend $7 on a spinnerbait and I catch 1 8-pounder on it in a tournament, it's worth it to me. Okay, like, sure, I would like to get more than one out of it, but you know, sometimes it happens like that. They get mangled on big ones, but you know, sometimes that happens to somebody and they're like, oh, I don't like that spinnerbait. Right now, you know, that spinnerbait, you know, you catch 7, 8, 9 5-pounders on it, like, and that thing's mangled. Okay, that's a good spinnerbait. We retire that. I got those, get retired and left on the dash. Those are the warriors. So you know, there's a lot of good spinnerbaits out there. Don't be afraid to try them. The other thing I would suggest if you want to become a proficient spinnerbait fisherman and is keep one of these on hand. You know, a file hook sharpener is invaluable because I can't tell you how many times I've been out there wearing them out, and I'm catching them on one, which is why I kind of buy everything now. I always buy 5 of everything so that I always have enough on hand. But you know, if you're catching them on one specific spinnerbait and that hook gets a little rolled up, which is going to happen if you fish them as much as we do, having one of these on hand and sharpening a hook and filing a hook point back down is not hard. You know, some guys will cut it off and throw it away immediately. I'm not doing that. Like, use a sharpener. There's nothing wrong with using it. You know, on jigs too. I use it a lot. I think it's something that younger guys growing up don't use that enough. But these things cost a lot, you know, and you can catch a lot of them too, you know, but there's a fine line between that diameter and that head size where a good spinnerbait, you know, you shouldn't probably get more than 10 good ones out of a good spinnerbait before you need to set that thing down and retire it. You know, and that might be a weird concept for some people to hear, but you know, when you're fishing for as much money as we are sometimes, you know, what's a $7-8 spinnerbait? You know, so real quick, I almost forgot equipment, spinnerbait equipment. So for me, I personally always go with a slower reel. I know like the industry standard is kind of moving to like 7-ish or more ratios because you're controlling everything with the handle. But for me, I'm still a firm believer in I use a 6 series a lot. And in the wintertime, I still use a 5-1 a lot. And I know that sounds a little crazy, but when you're using thumpers, you know, with big blades and stuff, using that slower gill ratio, the right cadence is everything with spinnerbait fishing. So I like to use a slower gear ratio. I pretty much always use at a minimum 20-pound test. Almost always. The only time I'm going to go any lower than that, it may be in like a burning situation in the fall or something, but like 9 times out of 10 I'm going to use 20-pound fluorocarbon. And if I'm in a short yardage situation, fishing up shallow, pitching cover and stuff, I might even go up to 22 or 25-pound fluoro. Just kind of depends on the cover I'm fishing. You know, more often than not, like I said before, I like to use a heavier spinnerbait. A lot of times I'm going to use a heavy action rod. I love a Z-bone. 7-foot heavy Z-bone pretty much has been my staple for these bigger spinnerbaits with bigger blades. I kind of fell in love with that and haven't looked back. If you're throwing like double willows, I throw still a 7-foot heavy KLX, which has got a little more parabolic action to it. If I'm throwing the willows, because they don't pull as much, but I really like that Z-bone for the big blades. But you know, don't underpower your rod. You want to be able to, I mean, this is a single hook you're driving here, so you know, you're basically driving a jig hook and 3/4 to 1 ounce of frame. You want to make sure you've got the right equipment to handle, you know, a 8 to 10 pounder when it eats that thing. And where I live, they're swimming around in every body of water around here, so you want to make sure you've got the right equipment to handle that bite of a lifetime when you get it. So definitely, you know, pay attention to the equipment you're using. Like if you're using a double willow, you can get away with a medium heavy. A lot of people would say you should use a medium heavy. I always err on the side of caution just because we have giant fish around here. So I just use a heavy, you know, big fluorocarbon line because, you know, we don't want to take any chance of losing the fish of a lifetime here. So yeah, that's my gear. Let me know what you guys think. Am I in left field here, or am I in the minority, or am I in the majority? You guys still using the spinnerbait? What's the deal? Appreciate all the love. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and leave me a comment below. Let me know what you think.